The following is a presentation of the ForceCenter podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the ForceCenter podcast feed, and this particular episode is a deep dive into the High Republic book, Race to Crashpoint Tower. I'm looking forward to diving in. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Ken Napzok. I have a Star Wars book in front of me with Post-it notes poking out of it. It must be a deep dive on a book.
That is right. We got Post-it note. That means we are just ready to go. If we have got Post-it notes, there's nothing to stop us.
A lot of time I try to go digital, right? Try to use the notes on my phone and make a little note. I know you have a system too, but this one I had to go. I finished it, then I went back and I was like, Post-it note there, and now we have a yellow flappy book.
I got like 3 systems, and every book I like go, no, I'm going to do this one. And then I combine the systems. I might go full Post-it note because sometimes I write everything down on a notes app. Sometimes I take if the quote's too long, I take a picture of the page. I might just have to slap a Post-it note on it. That seems like good and visceral.
Yeah, and then I keep the notes in there so that I put it back on the shelf. So if ever I need to pull it out at a party, I'll look real smart. Like, look, I've studied Race to Crashpoint Tower.
Well, let's get into not only studying it, but discussing it. First, we want to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. This week, we are recommending both of the new High Republic books, The Rising Storm by Cavan Scott, and the very book we are discussing today, Race to Crashpoint Tower. As we always say on these review episodes, if you haven't read or listened to the book and you want to, before our spoiler-full discussion, just pause right here, go ahead and get this from Audible, listen to it, and then come right back to the podcast. We got hours of your life covered with that. If you want to do that, you can download your free audiobook today. You can go to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audiobook. And Ken, we have another offer.
We do. Inside Editions, publisher of a ton of great Star Wars books, is offering 35% off across their website with a special ForceCenter code. To get your discount, enter the coupon code FC35 or visit the website with this link, insideeditions.com/discount/FC35. This week, we're recommending the Inside Editions book, The Lightsaber Collection. Oh, that looks good on a shelf. If you want to look smart, get that one. Check it out with the code FC35.
Does that one have Post-it notes in it?
No, because I flipped through it too much. It would knock the Post-it notes out.
Yes, I actually picked it up because at the time that we looked at that book and did an episode about it, we hadn't really met Stellan Gios, so I was happy to go look at his lightsaber.
I did the same thing. Yeah, fun thing.
Yeah, very, very fun. All right, let's get into it then. So this book is another book in the second wave of the first phase of High Republic storytelling. Race to Crashpoint Tower is a middle grade book by Daniel Jose Older. It's featuring characters from the High Republic Adventures comic, which Daniel Jose Older also writes, as well as new characters. And it details the adventures of several Jedi Padawans and other characters as they deal with the horrific Nihil attack on the Republic Fair on Valo, the main story of which is told in thrilling and, frankly, upsetting details. Upsetting in the best way in Cavan Scott's The Rising Storm. So these books really do work together, speak together, as well as that comic book, The High Republic Adventures. As always, we just want to make it crystal clear. We go full spoilers on these reviews, so if you haven't read yet and you want to, you can make the warning sounds with your mouth. Awooga, awooga, and stop listening. But if you are all read up, want to listen, please continue with us and make any noises you want. Anyway, let's get into it, Ken. What is your overall reaction to Race to Crashpoint Tower? Did you like it, love it, struggle with it? Where are you at?
Fun, wizard, all these kind of whiz bag things. Yeah, I really did like what this accomplished. It's always we've made this kind of reference or joke before here. It's always interesting to be reviewing the young adult or middle grade readers and approach it with the same gusto we would any other Star Wars book. And I think that's because each one of these young adult and middle grade ones really deserve that respect. They're so good. They're so fun. And they're so well put together. And I read it both now as a Star Wars fan that wants to know these things and meet new characters and have the ideas, the big ideas in Star Wars, sometimes presented on a easier to eat platter. You're like, oh, there you go, right there. And then also, I have fun kind of going back on man, if I was 12 reading this, if I was 9 reading, my head would just explode with Star Wars excitement. So I love trying to experience it through that lens as well. That Crashpoint Tower, Race to Crashpoint Tower, did all those things, checked all those boxes, and was a fun, quick read.
Yeah, absolutely. I think fun is the main thing that jumps out at me. There are some like great ideas, some kind of big Jedi ideas of what does it mean to be a Jedi, which absolutely connects with this great Star Wars theme of coming of age, which is what these books are all about. It gets at these kind of deep Jedi ideas really well from the perspective of the Padawans wrestling with them, right? Of the Padawans kind of explicitly wrestling with, I need to figure out how I'm going to be the Jedi I need to be in general in life, but also in this particular situation that's happening in this book. And the Padawans really wrestling with these specific ideas is really, really fun. And then I think just in general, it's a funny book. It is a fast-paced book. It has those really great action serial vibes that I really like, that I feel like are really present in High Republic. It almost does feel like a part of the decision about what the High Republic storytelling was going to be like is that it is cinematic. That a lot of these books have big action scenes that move fast, and much like the Rising Storm, this book kind of builds and builds and builds, and then by the second half, it's just a foot down on the speeder pedal, and it doesn't let up. A lot of this book is definitely wrestling with ideas, definitely character development, definitely coming of age story, but all told through nonstop action.
I don't know if there's ever been a more perfectly named Star Wars book. This is a race to Crashpoint Tower. What this is.
It really is. It is. Yeah. Can we just, this is the Star Wars we would like to get from A to B. Can we?
Yeah. And yeah. No, go. Sorry, but you mentioned it. I think so far every High Republic book, the comic book's a little different because you get the visuals attached, and this one does have art all the way through. We can talk about, but every High Republic book so far has done a great job of feeling like a big, giant cinematic Star Wars story, even if like this book, it's a small corner of that story.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any thoughts on the art?
It was really fun. Also, I love sometimes when you're reading like on a busy Saturday afternoon, you're like, oh, I need to sit down and read a couple chapters of Crashpoint. And there was the one picture of the big monster out of the zoo, right? And I was like, oh, got it. Okay, that's what's happening. I need more pictures in my books. I need picture books.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it because it helps you connect to like, yeah, that's what this a book like this is, designed to have pictures in it. I would not object to the Rising Storm having pictures in it, and they are really thrilling. I was also like really amused by myself at one point because I think the first picture is like a beat before it happens in the book.
Yes, yes.
Like, book, did you spoil it? Like. And it didn't at all, but I just had that knee-jerk reaction of like, this couldn't have been 2 pages later.
Yeah, but I think all of them, Mark, because you said the creature one was kind of like when it started happening, I was like, oh, it's the picture I just saw. Great, love it. So yes, book.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I floated away from the mic for a second because I was looking at the pictures. They're really fun. They're really good.
Yeah.
And again, that emphasis on movement, and this is in. There's, like I said, there's Jedi philosophy. There's some depth. There's some great stuff for kids of all ages to read. But those pictures and the style of them, there's a lot of great movement in it. There's a lot of great action. There is just this sense of we are moving forward.
Yeah.
So great stuff. So what I want to ask you for some big picture stuff before we dive into all the details, is this model of storytelling working for you where this is the second wave and the first phase of High Republic, where the adult reader novel tells the big picture story of a major event, the great, hyperspace disaster in Light of the Jedi, and now the attack on the Republic Fair and the Rising Storm, and then all the other books and comics weave in and out of that event. Is that structure working for you?
It really is working for me so far, and it is yet to feel distracting. I don't know if it ever will, and I certainly don't want it to be. But they know what they're doing; they know how to handle it. Case in point, I have a couple of them, and I'm waiting to go to my shop to get more. I have not touched the IDW High Republic Adventures comics. Haven't touched them yet. And I know this book has a lot of stuff from those, right? A lot of characters, a lot of moments.
Hmm.
I didn't feel lost. I didn't feel I knew I was reading something that happened elsewhere or had a little more information elsewhere or characters or hey, there's Bob. You remember Bob? I'm like, I don't remember Bob, but you know him. I'm there for the story. So it's working. Whereas in the Rising Storm, now that we're a little bit more, all right, here's what they're doing. And Light of the Jedi probably had just as much references or arrows pointing to stories you're going to hear more about, but we weren't as aware. Rising Storm, I was very aware. There was a couple moments where I had a slightly more cynical reaction to my own surprise, where I was like, yeah, we'll find out about that Rom kid. I know, yeah. But I got to tell you, now that I have this one in my hand, it's pure joy, and I want to go back to the Rising Storm and reread that scene again, or that sequence again, where he and Tayoric interact. And so, therefore, it just tells me it is working, and they have painted this big, wonderful, interconnected, yet individualized, universe.
Yeah, I think there is something about it that is like just strangely rewarding because a character immediately becomes more intriguing, or a moment immediately becomes more intriguing. Like I had that same reaction when I was reading The Rising Storm too, of like, okay, did I miss
Right,
Ram somewhere else, or is
right.
he going to show up somewhere? And then because we read the descriptions of what books are coming, but a little bit of me just wants to be like, I want to experience them when I read them in full. So then
Yeah.
it's like, as soon as I finished Rising Storm and realized, oh, that's Race to Crashpoint Tower, I was already invested before I opened the book. It's like, I want to know why that kid's got a dirty face and goggles.
Yeah. Yes. I enjoyed like, oh, okay, cool. Gonna get that answer. Yep.
Yeah, there's this structure. If they do it forever, could have some repetition, and I
Mhm.
think that the storytellers there are well aware of that, and I'm not actually worried about that.
Mhm.
But for right now, it's got this great anticipation of like, what's the event? What's the big event for the next wave?
Yeah.
And I think there's something fun about that of like, okay, it was a hyperspace disaster, horrific attack on the Republic Fair. Maybe the third event will be the big picnic,
The company picnic.
the
We are
Jedi
all the
Company picnic that doesn't get attacked at all. It's just people chatting.
I'd love that. Little three-legged Jedi races, except for if you have three legs and it's a it's a whole thing. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And like right now, like I know, we got another book coming very soon from Justina Ireland at the end of the month. Comics are moving forward to catch up with the events of Rising Storm because they're a little bit timeline wise behind this, both of them. But it's fun now having read the Rising Storm and seeing all these different things going on at Valo. Now this one, it makes you excited for like. I know Reith Silas is in the upcoming Justina Ireland book, so it's like I hope Reith's okay.
Mhm.
Was he there?
Mhm.
How was he affected? Uh, the creating all these different characters and knowing that they're all going to interact either literally physically with the event or be affected by it from afar is a great way to just build anticipation.
Yeah, it's working. Like I said, it is yet to feel distracting. I don't know what that will feel like if it is. If I just have, I guess if I hit a moment where I'm like, I have to go. All right, I have to fill in this blank. I've never felt that, and you're so right. They're very much aware of what they're doing here. They're no, they're put together with great care. But I very much enjoyed being in this small but important corner of the larger Star Wars story. And there was one particular moment of just the Republic Fair starting, fireworks are going, and Ram's seeing it, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, Elzar's getting down right now. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, yes, we're all connected here. Okay,
It's a great thing to think when you're reading this book. Like, where's the picture of that? Um, those cumbersome Jedi robes.
yeah.
Yeah, I think in general it's just really working well. I think where it would fall apart, and I don't think it's going to, is if you read a book that felt like it was just an ad for other stories. Right? That's like the
Right.
danger. That's the dark side, and I don't think that's been the experience at all.
No, no.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that you haven't read the comics, the High Republic Adventures, because
Mhm.
this is the first one where I felt like, yep, absolutely, this book utterly stands on its own. But a lot of the ideas to me were really enhanced. I realized by the knowledge that I had from that comic.
Mm,
But it's
yeah.
great to
Okay.
know that I thought like, yeah, it absolutely stands on its own, and it's great to have that confirmation from your perspective.
Yeah, no, it worked, and like I said, was aware probably at the time because we cover enough of the Star Wars news that oh, this name, I've heard this name, or seen the artwork, all those kind of things. So yeah, but I didn't feel, and again, made me, I got plans tomorrow to head to my shop, so it's working.
Nice, nice. Well, let's get into talking about some of the characters in this book. So, having read the comics, for me, I already knew Lula and Zine a little bit, and then this is Ram or Ram. This is his big introduction beyond his cameo in the Rising Storm. Was there a breakout character for you in this book?
I think for me it was Ram Jama Ram. I really thought he was so relatable. There was something really interesting to me about someone having the just kind of their world and worldly challenged and shattered, and then he has to rise to the occasion, and it does it. He's just charming all the way through. I think a lot about his outlook, and I get it. I think you might be similar to me, Joseph. Like we don't mind tinkering in our garage, whatever that garage may be. We don't. We'll be there for a long time. That's fine. I'm good. I'm good. But he had to go beyond that. And I just kind of love that this was a character who didn't want more than what he had in a way. He never stared towards the horizon dreaming of something else. He was like, this is where I am. But he has to go forward and he can't go back. And it's a great little journey.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I like Lula and Zine, and I think that the book is a little bit structured to be. It is Ram and Lula's journey, but kind of really begins and ends literally with Ram or Ram, however one chooses to say it, right? And yeah, just continues to fulfill the promise of the premise of where you're going to meet lots of different Jedi with different perspective. And this is so relatable. The book does a couple of great things to remind you, like, this is a shock to Jedi and Padawan that suddenly lightsaber training is not for meditation and tradition. Suddenly it's life or death, So to picture this kid is like, I'm kind of a loner. Other people make me feel uncomfortable. I don't know what to say to them. I don't know what they expect from me. I like talking to machines. There's no reason I just wouldn't do that for the rest of my life.
Right.
It's such a great picture of a relatable picture of somebody who wants to stay in their comfort zone until they have a different experience that makes them go, oh, I can be social too.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what this book is about. It's Ram realizes he can be social too.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
And it is very relatable. I think you and I are very similar that we like to perform, and in the right circumstances, we love to be social, love to be at big events, it recharges batteries. But then there is also that other part that's just like, I would like to be alone in my garage of any kind.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and very, very relatable stuff. All right, well, with that then, let's dive into the big themes and ideas that are at stake in this story. I thought this book was great at just really laying out very clearly what was going on, because I think the big ideas were things that Ram and Lula were explicitly wrestling with. In particular, I want to start with this thing that is just straight up advice that Ram got from his master. Seeing the whole versus just the parts in this theme gets kicked off right away on pages 5 and 6 when Ram is thinking through it. I'm going to read the quote here from Master Kunpar. You must see the whole for the whole, in each part for the role it plays, not for what you want it to be, not for what you fear it to be, just for what it is. And then there are a bunch of different examples for how that gets played out in the novel. But before we go forward, I just want to know what that quote means to you.
It's great, especially the second half of it. Not for what you want it to be, not for what you fear, which are both these. You dive into the themes of attachment, or fear itself, and what it might lead to, and what fear just means you might be holding on to something. All those kind of things. That just really works. It's a little bit of Yoda, conking Luke on the head a few times, and going, your mind's never on where you are, what you're doing. Just see the situation for what it is, and you can best deal with it going forward. And then we get into other ideas of attachment and everything, as we often do in Star Wars. But I just thought, it was a great topic sentence for what we're about to deal with here in this story, and it did jump out in a great way, and I think that worked for me.
Yeah, and I really like what you're pointing out, that it is a one piece of wisdom, but much like the wisdom itself, it is a whole with two parts.
Yeah.
That it is. They see everything, that everything has a big picture to it, and we're all connected, and all of these different elements, all these different parts are contributing to the whole, and it is important to see both the parts and the hole, see the forest and the
Mhm.
trees. But then it does have this other part of it of like, and the reason for that is we
Mm.
can get very distracted by the parts,
Yeah.
including with fear. And so it is this great bit of wisdom that has more than one part.
Yeah. Each part for the role it plays is great stuff.
Yeah. So then the way for me that I see it playing out is this is something that Rom is wrestling with in the way that he sees mechanical parts, the way he pulls apart speeder, the way he has a kind of a gift in particular for seeing mechanical constructions within the force and being kind of a force sensitive gearhead in a way
Mhm. Mhm.
of seeing like, yeah, other people see the speeder. I see all the parts of the speeder and want to see it both ways. And then it becomes very literal when Ram and Lula reach the rooftops and they can literally see the whole picture of the Nile attack. I really like that it was this literalization of that, of we
Right.
understand big picture,
Yeah.
or we're seeing individual elements of the attack, but now we can literally have the rooftop view and see the whole thing. And then I like that Rom takes inspiration from this quote, realizing that he should find value in his part in the Valo battle and knowing that his part is important to the whole, which is specifically restoring communications. There's that great moment where he's like, I just want to go around and do everything. I want to rescue every person, but I need to be committed to my part of the whole. So I feel like that's a
Mhm.
moment where he really uh, fulfills his master's wisdom. And then I feel like that theme is just made absolutely physically concrete again when Rom actually uses a part of his droid V18 to patch the comms.
Right.
He literally has uses a part from a different hole to make the hole work.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say poor V18, but he's all right. He's all right. He's used to modifications.
Yeah, yeah, and V18 offered it up. It,
Yeah.
it was like Ron was just like, I'm gonna rip this out.
Yank it out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we talked a little bit about that big picture wisdom, but I want to ask you: is it effective for you in the book? Is it effective in your own life? Because it's one of those pieces of wisdom that, like, man, if I just saw that, you know, in a hotel, because
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes hotels just have like weird bits of wisdom is their framed painting along with a picture of the ocean. I'd be like, that sounds good, that sounds really smart, but is it effective in the book? Is it effective in your own life, Ken?
This is where this book really worked for me as a middle grade reader. Just sitting down a youngster who's got maybe interest growing and places to be and fears about where they might go, where they don't want to go, and how you can just life starts to get overwhelming really fast. And this so it worked on that level where Ram I say Ram but Ramalama Jama Ram he's so sweet in his own way, right? He's just so like happy to be where he is, but just and to get that scope that you called it out, just that great looking across. It's a battle, so it's not this beautiful, wonderful, inspirational moment. It's scary. It's tense. He's looking out and seeing his place and knowing and learning that lesson of don't think beyond what's right in front of you. I wish I had that. I wish I had that moving to LA. I wish I had that now sometimes. Where you can just get so worried about all the parts or the parts other people are playing if you're working on projects or something like that. And it's like, yeah, we all want to, lift each other up and help each other. Connection, big Star Wars, as we've heard. But I like this. It's like you got this task, you got this skill, concentrate on that. It's just simple Star Wars life lessons. And I love that it's broadcast specific to young folks.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I really like that it works so well in the book. It's such a practical piece of information that we start with. It sounds good. It's a good piece of
Yeah.
wisdom. People would nod, and I really like that it really really plays out in a concrete way.
Mhm.
That it starts with this very simple visual metaphor of the speeder engine, right?
Yeah.
And then to take that step farther and say, can you take a bit of wisdom that has a really good practical application on a small scale, a small, real controllable, safe scale, like a speeder engine you're repairing.
Mm.
And can you actually apply that wisdom? Because, you and I talk week after week about bits of great wisdom in Star Wars. And sometimes the wisdom feels very simple and very direct. And the huge challenge is, can you map that over to yourself? Can you apply that to your life, particularly when you're dealing with something really stressful, particularly when you can easily become afraid of one of the parts. And I really like that it takes Rom through that journey. He could easily just forget this little bit of wisdom, right?
Yeah.
And say, fixing a speeder has nothing to do with suddenly having to be, a Jedi warrior
Right.
and deal with actual battle and life and death situations. Like, these things are not related. And that great example that he is able to apply the wisdom is really cool.
This is where the literal race to Crashpoint Tower, especially which that's driving action all through it, but it picks up speed once they're literally racing. It works for that goal. If he has that goal, he knows the part he's going to play. But along the way, talk about practical applications. So many things are put in front of him that challenge that goal, that challenge his place in the story. And constantly has to make that decision, constantly has to work towards his goal, and then use even own parts in your skill set for your own part. It's parts on parts on parts. But I love that the story. Once they get going, once they're racing, they're not stopping. But along the way, the little lessons that pop up or jump out of cages sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it was a fun thing for me to revisit. I think I love that you're focusing on, like, what is the experience of reading if you're actually 12 years old.
Mm.
But it's always a good thing for me to check in that I feel like I have had more success when I can pull back and see the big picture. You and I were talking on our News and Cues episode this week about, like, performing comedy and what works for certain audiences and what doesn't. And for me, that is a little bit of the lesson of pull back and see the whole. Like, when you're doing comedy, you're thinking about yourself because you're the performer and how do you want it to go and all that. And, like, sometimes it's so much more successful to just pull back and go, okay, but if I really want to connect to the audience, what have they been through? What do they want? Where are they coming from? What's the whole of this situation? Not just my part of it.
It's so interesting to apply it to comedy because a lot of times, you have all the parts up there on stage with you, but it's not what you want it to be, and sometimes it's what you fear it to be. You just have to see for what it is. Connect with the audience right then and there.
Yeah, yeah. And like, one time where I think this was like a big thing in my life for a while is I performed at the Minnesota Fringe Festival. Absolutely great thing. If you're not familiar with it, it's hour-long shows that are like back to back. There's a half hour in between, and audiences are really encouraged to fringe as a verb, which would mean go from show to show to show. And it's natural for people to just think about their show. And a thing that I always thought about when trying to construct my shows at Fringe is like, yeah, I want them to be exactly what I want them to be. But I also want to remember that whatever I'm putting on stage, there's a good possibility that an audience just saw 4 other shows before mine.
Mm.
And that's a different experience than I'm going to go see one show in the evening, right?
Yeah.
And it's just one of the pieces of wisdom I think that I was excited to see because it has real resonance with life experiences that I've had, and this was a good reminder for me to go like, ooh, are there ways I could or should be applying that to my life right now?
See, lessons from a young Padawan.
Yes. So thanks for the lessons. Any other thoughts on this before we move on?
No, sir.
So I wanted to ask about the Drenger. Do you think the Drenger reflect this theme in a dark way? They are kind of a whole with parts. They seem to be somewhat individual, but they also do have this unified consciousness. How do you feel about that?
This is a great question because I want to be like, man, they got a great example of how to work together, but also know their own roles. Like they're doing great, which makes them perhaps even more of a threat. If you follow me, they are working together. When your enemy is working better than you, check yourself and start making some improvements. I guess I don't know if you follow what I mean by that. It's just kind of fun. I think that's an interesting way to look at it versus these mindless meat loving plants.
Yeah, I think there's this sort of thematic tension because, like, yeah, they're following that wisdom pretty well.
Pretty well.
They're a whole, and they are all working together as parts to eat meat.
Yeah.
To just feed and kill and dominate. So yes, they're doing that, but I think that's one of these points in Star Wars where I think Star Wars does tell the story a lot of, like, it is harder to do the right thing. Like the dark side is quicker, easier, more seductive. There's even that great line that Rom has towards the end when he is using the Force to mess up ships, and he thinks it's so much easier to wreck things than build them.
Yeah, right.
And I feel like that's kind of what's going on with the Drendra of like, yes, it's easier for them to accomplish this because their goal is not how can we have a harmonious whole when while also being respectful of all of the different needs of the individual parts. They're like, no, we just eat. That's our whole thing.
Yeah.
It's easier for us to be pointed in this, this direction.
Yeah. No. Again, they're a threat. They're a threat on many levels. We'll talk a little bit more about the Drendra, but I love that you brought it up from that point of view.
Yeah. So my last question about this big theme of the whole and the parts, is this just a meta celebration of the High Republic publishing initiative?
I think so. I really think so. You mentioned already the scene of them kind of pulling back themselves and seeing what's going on, and having known what's going on, it just that became really more effective for me to see like you said with Wreath. Give me more stories here in the Republic Fair. There's so many tales to tell, and all working towards the big picture. Yeah, it's definitely. I'll take it as a meta celebration.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm not, implying that this was a cheeky like,
No,
the
no.
theme of this book will be about what we're doing as writers. But for me, it is hard not to think of
Mhm.
when there is clearly this whole the High Republic storytelling is all working together, and there are individual writers who are clearly have different voices, different perspectives, who are writing these stories. That feel very much like this was written by this person. Here's how it's similar to their other work. Here's how you can almost see their personality in it,
Mhm.
and yet they're writing the same characters, sometimes the same scene from different perspectives. So there's this really great, and I think just worthy of celebration. This whole that is still really celebrating the parts as well.
Yeah, I like that idea.
And I think it's one of the things that we're getting joy from as readers that we're like, oh, we get to see the whole, and now we're really curious about the parts.
Yeah, we
All
are.
right. Move on then to the next big theme. I think this one was present in lots of ways, but I feel like Lula was carrying it a little bit more, and that is the very familiar Star Wars theme of the power and fear of attachment. So this is the way that I saw it playing out here. Lula is very passionate about her friends and fears verging into attachment. Lula is a character who really wants to be the best Jedi, even I think wrestles a little bit with like, is that a Jedi thing to feel? But it's true. I want to be the best, wrestles a little bit with jealousy, but also wrestles with just caring about her friends a bunch. She gets some great counseling from Vernestra Rowe, where Vernestra walks her through like, look, you would save your friend's life, right? But would you save their lives because they're your friends, or would you save them because you would save anyone's life? And that helps Lula feel a little bit better. And this is Lula's reflecting on that on page 8990. She was already beginning to see the truth Venestra had been trying to light up for her, that her actions, her choices, revealed the deeper balance that being a Jedi required. It didn't mean cutting yourself off from love or not having emotions. It meant finding balance within those emotions to be able to seek out the light to do the right thing. Was that powerful for you? Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, that's one of those real, just kind of simple explanations of attachment that I really appreciate in these Star Wars stories. Just because it's easiest to throw attachment. Attachment's bad. Attachment's forbid. Anakin told us that, but to really explore what that means on smaller levels, on just your friend, or caring about your friend, or caring about wanting to be good, like you said, and how you can become attached to that idea. Going back to the beginning of seeing what it is and all those kind of things, but then envy's going to walk in there sometimes. Lula talks about being envious of Ernesto, like you said, and knowing that that's very un-Jedi like. So, anyways, I just love what it all kind of gets down to here. That it isn't about you, including I think of Shmi setting aside everything in her life and everything she maybe wanted for Anakin for what she felt was good for him at the time. Long journey, but I think in the end it works out. If yeah. So yeah, no, it just was real simple. Like, Daniel Jose Older did a great job of just taking these big themes and just having these little topic sentences all the way through.
Yeah, yeah, and I do like that these themes are things that the characters are explicitly being given
Mhm.
wisdom on and then wrestling with, and then they're really playing out in their actions. I love that there's a moment in the big battles where Lula is worrying about whether or not her friends are okay or surviving this chaos, this crisis, like super relatable thing. And she falters in her fighting and almost falls because she's focused on something she shouldn't be. And I think that's a great way to just kind of show, like, yes, it is great to have emotions, but this is the balance you need. You need to be focused on your part of the whole. You need to be focused on what you're doing and not focused on fear, right?
Right.
Because that's the dangerous part of attachment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the description, even just going back to Lula kind of saying, I want to be the best. And it's like, yeah, you should. But it's like, it clearly comes from a egocentric point of view, right? Where being the best is going to be great for being the best Jedi you can be. It's going to be great for the bigger picture. But why? Or do you want to plug into that bigger picture, or do you just want to be the best for some sort of, golden robe you get? I don't know.
Right. Do you want to be the best at helping people, or do you want a certificate that says I'm better? Yeah. Big difference. I think this also plays out in contrast with Rom in what we've been talking about, how much he enjoys working alone in a garage. I like this quote in particular on page 81. This was another reason Rom didn't like being around people. He had to explain himself and try to make things make sense. And it was, quite frankly, exhausting and a waste of time.
Yes.
I love that he starts from such a place of wanting to be alone. But then this is really a story of him connecting to other people. And by the end, he wants to be with other people. So that is a real pro connection, pro attachment argument from Rom's perspective in his journey. We get it a little bit from Zine as well, that she fears that she's lost connection to her people. She fears she won't be fully accepted by the Jedi. That's in this book. That is really building on what's in the comics. So I think it's strong. It's strong in the book, even stronger when you combine it with the comics. And then, Ty York is not a main character of this book. But I think it works well with The Rising Storm, that Ty York is somebody that, in theory, walked away from the Jedi, doesn't want to be attached to anyone, won't even name droids or give them nicknames or that kind of thing. But she still works with Rom to escape, and she uses her Sandville to rescue Zine. So she is having connections in her actions in this book, and certainly in Rising Storm.
Yeah, going through a big process and a change that comes a little later in life too. So we can all continue to learn.
Exactly. So I know I asked you a little bit about that specific quote, but any other kind of big picture thoughts on the way attachment is wrestled with in this book?
I just when it comes to getting the outcomes you want, it works for me. I'm really being moved by that again. I know I'm probably just repeating myself, but just how then that plays out, and how Lula is you're always gonna want that. She's always gonna want the best outcome, but how you get there, again, the choices along the way. I'm just reading again of just like she's in the beginning. I meditate twice more than anyone. I score great on the tests, and look, and that's all wonderful. But how you apply that, again, you talked about that earlier with the other theme. It just all kind of works on that side of it there, and it also works just in terms of character. Looking at Vernestra, of just, she is kind of a wise beyond her years type of character. I think there's even somewhat of a reference to that directly, and so I love getting knowledge from her.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think for me, I like the way the attachment is wrestled with in this book, because it totally deals with the Jedi tradition. It even shows that moment of danger where Lula is obsessing on the fear of her personally losing people that she's connected to, which is, of course, a totally rational thing to do, but she's losing focus because of it. And she keeps coming back to balance. So I like that. I like that it is showing a real practical, like, well, if you're absorbed with fear, you can't help the people that you're trying to help right now.
Yeah.
And I like that there's also this real practical element where Lula conquers that danger of attachment, where Rom needs help on the platform to get the communications back up, right? And Zine wants to go to help protect him. And Lula has that moment of like, I'm really attached to Zine, and I was worried about her, and we just got back together, and I want to clench, right?
Yeah.
I want to attach and say, no, don't go, because what if something happens to you? And Lula being like, this is it. Here's my chance to show balance. Yeah. It is better for the whole if Zine goes to help Rom, and I need to let that go. And I thought that was really, really nice to take some of those arguments that can sometimes be sort of a theoretical and make it very practical.
Yeah, and this all flows very nicely for me into some of the bigger themes and stuff around Anakin's fall, and now back in 2005 now. You're what, Padme's upset about Padme, and it's like, of course, now looking back, this all flows nicely into that kind of stuff there too.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to talk about that specifically, that the books in general, but the High Republic in particular, features a lot of conversations about attachment and even having sexual relationships, and a lot of moments where characters like Vernestra are saying, like, here's the deal, here's the concern
Mhm.
that we don't do this, make this mistake, but here's all the ways that you can absolutely embrace your emotions. And Dira gives Bell a very similar speech of, like, emotions are great. We want to be
Yeah,
connected and to celebrate the people that we're protecting. We're celebrating life. The thing is, you need to process them and let them go.
right.
Do you want to see more of those kind of just explicit discussions of emotion and attachment on screen?
Yes, and in more High Republic books, because we have so many Jedi with so many different experiences, skills, levels, job titles, the way they look at things, it's refreshing every time because we out here in the real world are just as vast and diverse as the Star Wars galaxy right now, and so that works for me to see it repeated. But yeah, on the big screen too, or live action, animated, whatever, it'd be great.
Yeah, yeah. I think I would be really interested in it because I feel like, obviously, Anakin's journey of attachment and the rules are, attachment is forbid, and even like those old Attack of the Clones posters just leaned into it so hard, right? Of like,
Yeah.
no love, no. I can't remember. You know the poster I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Um, I don't want to misquote a poster, but it gets to that central idea of, attachment isn't allowed,
Yeah.
but Anakin's gonna get attached. Um, I think there's a lot said in the films about the danger of attachment, and I feel like the films absolutely celebrate attachment and compassion. I think that's the whole value of comparing and contrasting
Mm.
Anakin's journey in the prequel trilogy and Luke's. Anakin shows the danger of attachment, then he's got Yoda and Obi-Wan worrying about it, and Luke perseveres with compassion, and his healthy attachment, his healthy compassion is what saves the day. So I think sometimes people can hear the explicit anti-attachment words said in the prequels,
Yeah.
and then maybe not focus on how much that just the story of the original trilogy. There's not a bunch of lip service to the word attachment,
Right.
but the story of the original trilogy is absolutely the balance in saying, yes, here's all
Mm.
the power and the wonder and the success of connection and attachment.
Mm.
But since I think people can still sometimes focus on those words in the prequels, that I kind of long for some on-screen conversations like we have in the High Republic, that
Yeah.
is Jedi being explicit about the balance.
Well, with the Jedi and the prequel era, probably need more discussions about it, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, and I think
Really
that is
believe
a
the words.
yeah, no, I think that is a part of it too, of like that's the portrait of the prequels, is they're afraid.
Yeah.
They've given in to fear of attachment so that they don't even allow a little bit. They're just like, it's bad.
Yeah.
And they've given into the fear, and that's a part of the story too, which, why, Yoda and Obi-Wan can't quite see where Luke is headed.
Yeah.
And they learn from him in the original trilogy. All right, but back to this book. So again, by the end of this book, Rom wants to leave the planet and make more connections. Lula is confident in her balance, and is, happy to make a new friend in Rom. So she's not like, ooh, I don't know if I can add another attachment. She's like, come on board.
Yeah.
So they both kind of in the end resolve their main issues by heading off into new adventures in the High Republic Adventures comic book. Were you happy for Rom, or were you pulling for him to work alone in a garage forever?
I'm very happy because here's the thing: at some point, you'll get to a garage and you'll get some alone time. Trust me, Rob. Trust me. You'll be able to be in your studio by yourself. Yeah. No, I really like the way the way it worked. And there's something here. Follow me on this one here. Rom and the way he was, raised here on Valo, Padawan on Valo, wants to kind of stay here. It's his place. It's his city. It's his home world there. And there's something powerful to me at the end. And I don't know. I know Daniel Jose Older was the NYC paramedic. He had a 10-year career there. I think post 9/11, and I don't know his entire story. I don't know if he's a New York citizen during that time. But you think to 9/11, we're 20 years back from this, and just the real world, whatever that might be, coming to your city, destroying it, destruction, and the naivete gone. I look at Rom at the end of this story, seeing that, and it's more hopeful. It's more, we're going to go see the galaxy. I'm not here anymore, but it reminded me, there's some echoes of that for me. I'm just watching this happen, and how you now you have to be plugged in, and now you can't just be down in a garage with your head down working. As fun as that is, and relaxing as it is, you always have that part of your brain, you always have that part of your soul, but you are here. This is the bigger world, and it'll come to your front door. Your choices, we always talk about the power of choices. I think there was, to me, I'm not saying it was intentionally there, but I took some parallels to that for me.
I think that's really interesting and really well said. And I think you've put it in a real emotional light. And I think for me, what was powerful about it is that Rom understood the Jedi teachings of we're all connected in a theoretical sense. And this shocking event made him really feel on an emotional level the truth of that and what it means and why it matters. And I love that propelled him to go like, I want to go out and experience the connection, and I want to see more of the whole.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Any other big picture themes or ideas you wanted to discuss?
It's connected with a lot of them there too, but like the attachment and the fears and all that to me also boils down into adapting, growing, and allowing that kind of change. And I'm even thinking of V18, man, all these alterations along the way. It's a little boxy droid that has to be painted purple so no one thinks it's a storage container. Then he becomes a rocket jet motorbike. Then he becomes, a rocket jet. And there's just so many things about it. But Rom, the changes you're just describing there, both him and Lula, but like, that's part of the other side of attachment too. Of just if you get so attached to one way of living, one way of doing, one little corner of your world, you aren't going to change. You're not going to grow, and that's so important as well.
Oh, I love that you point that out. That's really good, and that really does match. V18's journey does match our Jedi Padawans. Yeah, and I think there's a power there too of the change again from the theoretical to the practical, to the application, that I think a lot of us in the real world, I think, do feel connection and are willing to be there for other people.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it takes something kind of shocking or out of the normal to go, oh yeah, let me jump in and let me help,
Mm-hmm.
And I think this book has some real, like you were saying, real this is all Jedi space fantasy fighting evil plants who yell meat.
Yeah.
But there's some real world stuff in it.
Yeah, no, not to dwell too much on it, but it's like I've been saying this on some other shows of the Good People Association too. We're just the last year, for a lot of us, I think in the last year and a half, and what's gone on in the world, not just with COVID, but just social issues and all these things that have kind of literally exploded in front of us. It's so easy to look at a big giant earthquake, an attack, it's something where it's one incident, we all throw everything down and all for one go to save and help, and the empathy and compassion and the desire to help. And it's so easy to apply that then when your city's being attacked, like here it is in this book. But it's harder to do that on a daily basis, right? It's harder to just look out and go, hey, people are hurting and suffering, and they need that same energy from you now. And I think at the beginning of this book, Rom just, he doesn't see that. And it unfortunately takes this giant attack for him to connect to that global level of empathy.
Right. And not being aware that like there are slow rolling tragedies going on for a lot of people all the time. And to try to be more present and aware for them is a big lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great stuff. All right. With that, we are going to take a quick break, and then we will be back to discuss some of the moments, some of the canon connections that we enjoyed in Race to Crashpoint Tower. We will be racing back in just a moment.
Hey, ForceCenter friends, make sure you're keeping up to date on all the great content from Jennifer Landa. Whether it's YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok, you whippersnappers, ForceCenter's own Jennifer Landa continues to bring you fun, informative, and insightful laughs and moments.
Also, Jennifer brings her experience and perspective as a Star Wars loving mother to her DIY projects, blogs, and more. So be sure to head on over to jennylanda.com. That's JENILANDA.com for articles like how to make your own Darth Maul sneakers or 10 unique Star Wars baby gift ideas.
Follow Jen on Twitter and Instagram at Jennifer Landa and on TikTok as Jennifer Landa 1138.
We are back to finish our discussion of Race to Crashpoint Tower. Ken, I want to ask you if there are some moments that you particularly enjoyed. Moments of any kind, insightful moments, fun moments, whatever it was that grabbed you.
Well, sorry, I had myself muted because I was shuffling through the pages. So going back to our discussion on the best way to take notes, if you don't have it on a digital form in front of you where you can scroll easily, you're left to look through a bunch of Post-it notes. I did like a lot of the first time Rom, because you go through this idea where Rom's kind of like, I hated the lightsaber fighting lessons. That wasn't me. That's not what I do. And then just when the first bit of action early in the book, and it's not even later on, some of the lightsaber stuff comes into play, but when he's going to discover the first, was it like 3 Nile that have already done the tampering, they broke the security breach.
Dropping the Drenger bomb, I think.
Yeah. And just him kind of having this like, wow, action. Like it was a great little detail following a fun little sequence for me. I really love that. He'd say, here it is. Sorry, I literally was having to look through Post-it notes. He'd been in his first real fight. He'd lived. And so had everyone else, which was a huge relief, really. The idea of taking a life, even a battle, was almost scary to him. And that's the thought of losing his own, which goes into some philosophy. But they're just everything about that. And then the aftermath for him personally, I really like that.
Yeah. And it's that first great picture we were talking about.
Yes.
With his cool golden blade. Yeah. Oh, it's really great. I absolutely love that. I love that moment. I loved him reflecting on like what fighting, but I've been trained, so I do know how to reflect bolts and all that. So like he's clearly trained. He can clearly do it. And then there's kind of this companion moment on page 53, where Master Sai is running Lula in Zine through lightsaber forms. And Lula's kind of reflecting like that. This used to be just meditation and tradition.
Yeah.
And I love that it's presented. She got the thing about how it makes the lightsabers are part of us. Jedi have always done this. I'm connected through this to all Jedi past. But it's just like, in a comic way, she's almost saying like, yeah, no, the lightsaber forms used to be like doing a yoga video on YouTube, like deeper. But it really was about being in touch with your body, meditation, tradition. And now suddenly it is about combat. It is about life and death. It is about saving people. It is about keeping ourselves alive. I really love that coming of age story of like, yeah, this thing that used to be meditation tradition, it's life or death now. I really love that.
Yeah, that works.
What are more for you?
I love a couple moments. Lula takes a shot, gets singed, right? And the description could only come from a NYC paramedic. So just the coming of the pain, the I'm hurt, but I haven't felt it yet. The looking down in the description quite, vividly of the skin and what's left. I really, for a middle grade reader that's zipping along and whiz bang wizard type of energy, to have that little moment and to have the true cost and how close and how worse that could have been, that jumped out to me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great visceral bit of action there, and the description of like what is just like there's no flesh there. It's
yeah.
And I think the book is really like a fun thrill ride, and without kind of I think being as mired in like absolute terror as The Rising Storm is, does still keep those stakes nice and high.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, it's you're so right. There was a couple points where I'm like, this is we're having such fun with this, and it's this great adventure, and you kind of forget the big picture and the death and destruction and the bodies everywhere. You think of the Rising Storm paragraphs, and you're like, wow, this is you wouldn't want that in a middle grade reader, obviously, but it was just kind of unintentionally funny, not in a bad way, but just like I thought about it a few times.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other moments that I wanted to share is a moment that is, it's about comedy, but it is also about frustration, growth. I really liked Ram's messy mind trick on the
Mm.
Nemodian head of security, Idrik Snat. That was one of those. We were introduced to the character of Idrik Snat in The Rising Storm, but didn't spend a ton of time with him. And I think what I liked about it is this idea that a mind trick is yet, or mind touch is yet another thing where Rom's like, yeah, no, I'm aware it's in the tool belt. I don't really need to mind trick a speeder, so I haven't really done it
Yeah,
before
yeah.
to fix it, and that it is kind of working. And I think there's, to me, there's that comedy of frustration. I always like the comedy of this is only working kind of, so he's using the mind trick to try to convince Idrik Snat to pass on the message, this incredibly important message. So you got this great comedy of like, we know how important the message is that Rom has, and so that makes a great contrast with kind of the silliness and the foolishness of Idrik Snat. And then the other thing I liked about it is there is something about this mind trick where it kind of worked. So Idrix was trying to do the intent that Rom had communicated in the mind trick, but was getting all the words wrong, so it wasn't making any sense. There's something about that just felt like that's Nemodian style humor, good, bad, or otherwise, from the prequels. It feels like it matched.
I really, yeah, that was. I didn't know that. Yeah, I guess there's Nemodian humor, huh? Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah. So that was a fun one for me, and I got one more, and I'll bat it back to you.
Sure.
So a moment I think of connection, in a moment where Zine kind of got to shine. I like when Zine has gone down there on that platform to help protect Rom from the Drenger as he's trying to get the comms to work, and Rom gives Zine his blade, and I like he says, "We're not really supposed to share them." It's a funny line, and it is another reflection of young Padawans who did not expect to be in massive battles, responding to the reality before them. But then Zine's journey being that, you know, she is comes from a society that does not like Jedi. She's traveling with Jedi. She's been told she can't train because she's too old. She can't like officially train, but she's just tagging along, and all the Jedi are really respectful for her. They are kind of training her. It's just like they're not like, okay, here's your robes, you're a Padawan. It's like this gray area. So for her, I could just really feel that, like, that's such a moment of acceptance. That's such a moment of connection, of saying, we're not standing on ceremony. You came here to help protect me. Take my lightsaber. I trust you. Yeah. It's a really nice moment.
You know, maybe she'll graduate the Jedi Academy like with a GED, like complete. You know, maybe she didn't go. Maybe they won't let her walk. But I hope she gets there.
She'll get an honorary lightsaber.
Yeah, I hope she gets there.
Yeah. So, any other moments for you that you wanted to share?
Yeah, there was one particular moment when they're on the the Varen Chagger. Is that the ship? Great name for a ship. Vernestra and Lula particularly having this little exchange. A lot of stuff about fear and being afraid, and how without it we can't be courageous. Some great theme stuff there, but just there's this description of Lulu's in the turret with the gunner, and she let loose another barrage of fire, but the Nile seemed infinite. 4 spun out of the sky in flames, and 7 more took their place. Really good description of just what we kind of feel in Rising Storm, or what we feel here in this book, and what the Nile are actually out there doing. You thought they were a little sleeper cell that was off in the corner, and you took care of them. The great disaster, that was bad, but we're good. We're all clear sailing from here, right? And just this is the feel, and this is what. You know, you and I talked a lot about Rise of the Storm, but it was really overwhelming in the fog, their war fog, all that kind of stuff. That description really jumped out to me.
Yeah, this idea of just this endless wave of chaos and anger. Yeah, it's really great. And speaking of chaos and anger, let's talk action moments. You highlighted a couple of moments related to action, but did you have some more action moments that you wanted to share?
Yeah, it sounds like a cheat, but just once you're really going, once you're really on that race, there's fun banter, there's the little what are these bond breaks, or
bond bracks,
they're fun, the zoo, all the things come along. It just it that's why I said that it's like the best named book ever. Not just any of the books, but it is truly a race to Crashpoint Tower, and how when that title was revealed, it's very much like almost like a Disney kids movie, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a negative reaction to it, but I was just like, yeah, okay, yeah, middle grade reader, Race to Crashpoint Tower. That melted away because it really works for me. It's fun, and just the action, that serial adventure that we talk about a lot here, and then getting to the tower, and then the Drengier, and then kind of it's subtle, that kind of subtle unless you reread it, but just like that pod is dropped off by the Tokrut Nile, and you're not really thinking of that back then. And suddenly to come back, and it's a worse problem. That really worked. I felt the pacing, and it was because it was such a fun, quick read on a Sunday afternoon outside in the sun. Like it really felt like a fun Star Wars story.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Like, I really love the title, but I did absolutely have flashbacks. Like, am I in fourth grade? Do I get a fruit roll up and we're going to watch a movie?
Yeah.
The kind of videos it wasn't even videos then. It was a actual film. But the title works great because it is totally the spirit of the novel. There are so many great action moments. Right away at the beginning, I love that when Rom is, surprised to be in action, and he's deflecting blades, but then he goes for what he knows, and that reaching into the speeder engine and making a fist, and something inside the speeder just breaks. Love that moment. That was one of those moments where it's like, I want to do that. Like, connected me back to like, I want to have a lightsaber when I'm a kid, and I want to reach in and just make a smashy fist, and then something breaks. Cool. So many. Once we get into the second half of the book and the Race to Crashpoint Tower is on, there's a ton of great little action beats. But one that really grabbed me because you could just see it really visually when the Sandval is approaching them, it swoops in and attacks on the Nile ships. There's that description that it grabs a Nile ship by the tail, kind of squeezes it in its tail, then throws it in the air and spikes it. And in both Rising Storm and Race to Crashpoint Tower, this like the kind of the power of nature unleashed, like the Nile is attacking these animals too, and these animals aren't having it, and they're working with their Jedi friends. It's really visceral, it's really powerful, but that particular description was just like and don't come back kind of attack from the Sandval.
Love that.
Yeah. I liked a lot of the things with V-18 getting turned into a rocket, weaponized. That was just like a really great fun image. The image from the cover of the book is great. So I liked everything with V-18 flying around. And then kind of coming full circle for me, my last one is similar to the small Rom action moment at the beginning. I really love the whole idea that Rom does convince the Drengier to attack the Nile, because the Nile did lie to the Drengier. In that image of the Drengier reaching out and holding those ships in place, and then Rom is reaching in to mess with them, and that's where that great line comes in of like, wow, it's easier to wreck things than fix them. But just a cool image of like this moment of partnership when the Drengier are not like, oh well, now we're going to become buddies. There's no sense of that, but there's that sense of the frightening power of the Drengier briefly on the Jedi side. And then there's just something I love about reaching in and just messing up somebody's ship. And like, why aren't Jedi doing that all the time?
Just cracking things, just reaching in and cracking things, right? Just
Yep.
turning off radios. Yeah, okay. I'm there for that. Music's too loud.
Yeah, use the Force to put the brakes on when you're in a chase, and somebody just goes flying out.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, so those are my action moments. Any more for you?
Get a little details. There was something about Zen like firing the blasters at the Drengier, and I'm like, because I got to admit, I wouldn't have a lightsaber. I don't know if I'd be that skilled or be a Force user, though she's Force sensitive and everything. But I just was like, I'd be there just firing the blasters as fast as I could, and just the fear of them not working. But it was exciting end sequence there for me.
Yeah, no, I think that one is absolutely great moment. So a lot of action moments, including the second half of the book that we enjoyed. Got a lot of meaningful action moments as well. You ready to move on to canon and lore?
Yeah, fun little canon things here.
Yeah, so there was a lot of different species or a lot of like, yes, it's from this High Republic book or comic. So I didn't write all those down. I just kind of grabbed some that I had questions about that I wanted to know your thoughts on. I was really intrigued by this bit of new canon about Rom Jamaron, that he grew up in Lonisa City on Valo. Are you curious to know more about this? That I to me that it is so fresh and different, because normally the Jedi stories we know is a youngling is identified and they go off to be trained somewhere. Not that they live their whole life uh,
Yeah.
in their hometown.
And it's like I wonder if there's later on, not necessarily answered in the High Republic, but does something go wrong where that's not what they want to do, or is it something that just happened by, dare I say, clerical error? I don't know. No, there's something that stood out to be, and it made this attack so much more personal and have so much weight for Rom, which makes it even that much more important for us as a reader. So I like the idea. I'd love to explore that more. And it does. Do other Jedi get does it cause little problems? A little envious? Like you get to stay at home? And again, he's probably pulled from his family, gone to the temple, all those kind of things that I get. But it was very different.
Yeah, to me it just opened up even more different things to explore of the Jedi in the prequel era being a little bit more tight, a little bit more rigid. You get the sense that Obi-Wan would not be allowed to train
Mm-mm.
on Stoojon. No, you go out and you leave your past behind, so you don't worry about attachment.
Right.
And the fact that maybe it happens sometimes that he went to the temple and then he came back here when he was his master, came back here, was assigned here, and no big deal. I'm just really interested in hearing more about that.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, love that idea.
So this is kind of playing out in the High Republic adventures, that IDW comic, but it's referenced in the books, both Rising Storm and Race to Crashpoint Tower, that Yoda is off investigating ancient knowledge the Nile is after. He is kind of on the trail of that combined staff that that Markian Rowe has assembled. Are you happy with this use of Yoda? That he's in that comic, but then in these books, there really is this kind of funny, like, well, Yoda would really be a lot of help. He's not here. Yoda is on assignment elsewhere. Are you okay with that? Are you happy with that?
It's working for me. This is kind of like what we're talking about up top. Is like it's nothing about it's distracting to me yet. Eventually, there does become what is he using his personal time off? Like, come back. We got something going on. You're on call 24 hours a day, Yoda. But it works for me. And then in this context of there's something bigger at stake, and there's some kind of bigger weapon, mystical and mythical, and it's like Yoda should be on that case, and therefore there's a part to play in the bigger picture, and Yoda's got that part.
Yeah, I think it's really working for me, but it is like dancing along the edge of a thing that I had been concerned about. I think I brought it up in when we did our episode about all the High Republic reveal. We did a big episode of ForceCenter with Alex and Molly. That someday it'll be fun to go listen back to that and see what all played out. But there had been such hype and such excitement about it's a brand new era. It's all these new characters. Anything can happen. Of course, Yoda's there. Yeah. And I had been concerned that it'll just be he's like Odin. He's got the Yoda sleep. So he's asleep for these 200 years. I thought there might be a little bit of we don't want to deal with Yoda. And I like so far the balance that he features in the comic, a bunch of fun moments, fun images with Yoda with very prominent teeth.
Yeah.
A very toothy Yoda baking baked goods, sharing baked goods. But it feels like just totally natural and flowing storytelling, because we're seeing those moments in the IDW comic where Yoda is keyed into something more, and it feels like the kind of thing where Yoda would say, I trust all these great Jedi have this other part of the whole addressed, and this feels like a part that calls to me that I should look into. I'm the older one. I have knowledge, I might have personal experience with some of this ancient knowledge, so it feels right to me.
Yeah, good use. Yeah, this little Yoda's been hanging over this series since they announced it, right? So
yeah, the shadow of Yoda.
The shadow of Yoda.
Yeah, so I think it's handled well, and I'm curious to hear more about his adventure at some point. This Race to Crashpoint Tower deals with this offshoot spiritual group of elders, or I guess a spiritual group of elders on Trimant 4, which is where Zine is from, and those details are in that IDW comic, that this group of elders that she was a part of, kind of raised by, don't like the Jedi. They think the Force is real, but it's not to be touched, and have issues with the Jedi, and that's part of Zine's whole story, that she knew she was connected to the Force but was ashamed and all that. And that story again gets told. But then this book seemed to reveal that the Nile are an offshoot
Mm.
of that group that dislikes the Jedi. What did you think about that whole story? That's like hint of origin for the Nile.
It was well played, and I love that it comes to us first so far, right? Unless I'm missing something in this book on this level, where it's not just thrown in there. That's pretty big, and the stuff with Zine's pretty interesting and different in its own way. But it makes sense. That it's perhaps things get more complicated and convoluted with the Nile and the relationship, but just to come from that point of view and from that little thing of offshoot of this spiritual group that doesn't like the Jedi. Like, okay, that raises some of the Nile stakes, and the Nile stakes have already been raised for me through the book so far, where I've gone from all right, band of marauding pirates, neat, to this dangerously disenfranchised group that wants power, wants their own way of life, and now to have these kind of origins that stretch back, I'm interested.
Yeah, and like you said, I don't remember it anywhere else. There are so many details in the High Republic, and I'm doing my best to stay on top of them. I might have missed it somewhere, but to me, it was new. It again ties in to a bunch of stuff that's going on in the IDW comic, so it connects really well and makes sense. We're spending a lot of time with some elders and Mark Yenro and his search for things, so it all does make this great sense. But for me, it really resonated with some of the stuff that's specifically at the end of Light of the Jedi, right? When Mark Yenro is kind of reflecting on there's things that happened with the Jedi, not even in his personal past, but in his family's past.
Right.
And I think it just goes to a great sense of expanding the galaxy, expanding the way that the Force can be seen and appreciated in lots of different ways. Connects to some of like the little bits of stories we've had of Luke's journeys traveling around the galaxy after the original trilogy, trying to understand all the different words and ideas that people have for the Force, the different ways they interact with it. And the idea that the Nile is not like a Force group, a group of Force users, but the Force is so a part of reality and so a part of so many different cultures that the Nile would grow out of a group that has baggage about the Jedi is really, really interesting. Like much more interesting than like, oh, we're Sith, but we have a different name, right? That it's still a relationship to the Force. It's still a relationship to the Jedi, but from a fresh perspective.
Well, coming to this whole series, talking about the shadow of Yoda hanging over it, it was a shadow of, can you tell story of Jedi, where we are led to believe the Sith themselves as a organization, as a company, are dormant, right? We were to believe those words. And so I personally had some like, okay, which is why I had that kind of reaction to the idea of the Nile initially. Early designs, everything about it was cool, but I was like, I don't know if it's going to have the weight. But like you're saying, the Force is there. Whether you have a red lightsaber or blue, green, yellow, purple, red, the Force is there. Many different people in different cultures interact with it differently. So now to trace it back to that, again, it's really intriguing.
Yeah. I'm excited to get to be able to just learn more about that as time goes on, and certainly Mark Yenro is set up to be this big bad. Who knows? Anything can happen, so he might suddenly disappear. But the other thing that this made me do is I'm sure other people have talked about this a bunch, but thinking about the Nile as an offshoot of this old spiritual group made me think about the future of the Nile, and made me wonder if we're going to get any storytelling that connects the Knights of Ren to the Nile.
Okay. Yeah.
I think part of it is that Rise of Kylo Ren comics series that gives us a little bit of a backstory on this character who was the Ren leading these Knights of Ren, and then Kylo takes the mantle. There's so much in that comic that connects to the High Republic, right? They're on Elfrana. There is the space station from Claudia Gray's great book.
Right.
That there's a part of me with like, so Ren has a mask that is not unlike the Nile, and they have a relationship with the Force, but they have a very similar philosophy of just the galaxy is chaos and everyone should take what is theirs, and we exist to take. That is our mantra. And there's a part of me is like, that could be a really interesting thing if like the Nile are shattered down to this tiny little splinter that
Mm.
still has some of their philosophy and a little bit of their aesthetic.
Yeah, let's keep some of the pants. Keep some of the
Yeah.
masks. Yeah.
Keep some of the masks,
Some of the
keep some of the armor. Keep a mask with just a weird symbol in the middle, like Ro.
No, look, if you're digging in and for just some good old fashioned thoughts and predictions and speculations, the little details of the High Republic being all through a lot of those comics, whether we knew it or not, and now we know. It's really interesting. It's hard to turn away from.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun to think about. And if it were true, I just kind of had this like absolutely fun nerd moment of like, okay, if the Knights of Ren were this tiny, tiny splinter left of the defeated Nile, then it's pretty cool that Ben Solo's like, well, we'll put that to bed.
Yeah.
Finished off the last of the Nile.
There you go. Wrap it up.
All right. Thank you for indulging my my hopefully responsible speculation. And again, I'm sure other people have had that discussion. So moving on. So we have this exact same prison scene as the Rising Storm, but it's now from Rom's perspective instead of Ty York's. Was that effective for you?
Yeah, like I said up top, I think I might just go read that section again. Read when Rom shows up. It's that's where these type of connections things are working. I don't always need that. They need that, and maybe, like I said, maybe one day it becomes distracting. It was fun. And Ty York's such an interesting character. So to have this kind of point of view of her from Rom and Lula, I wouldn't say they're kids, but they're younger, and to have them kind of looking up as this adult in their story and how they view Ty and what she does and everything. I know there's something about it I really like. She kind of was the adult actor on the Disney kids show.
I like that. I like that a lot. And they're like, "Oh wow, this is a very different adult."
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Her lightsaber has a very sharp hilt. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just really cool to just see sort of the mechanics of the High Republic that obviously the scenes differ because they're from the different perspectives, but there's some of those same exact lines and kind of just a cool thing of like we're gonna have the exact same scene but from different perspectives was such a Star Wars point of view. Not like it's a they have different. It's not a Rashomon, right? It's not like it's just from what they were experiencing inside their head. So I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's just fun to boil it down. It's like the first time we're like, we had this little kind of weird kid covered in grease. Now we got this kind of dark, unknowing adult with a lightsaber. Like it's just, I love the point of view on that.
Yeah, and like we're talking about, there's this moment of crisis where they're both loners who need each other in that moment, and they don't know one another well enough to know they're both loners who suddenly need to work together, and they do. Is kind of cool for us, the audience, to have that knowledge, and they don't really know that.
Yeah, it's fun.
Final couple things for me. The Mudhorn in the zoo, that was great to hear the Mudhorn shouted out, connecting everything. Yeah. And then just like in Rising Storm, a Gungan attendee of the fair died. There was a Gungan Nile member, which was nice to just Gungans are out there doing their thing, attending fairs and attacking fairs. Good for Gungans.
Daniel Jose Older had the Gungan in Last Shot, right? His other book that he wrote. I spent probably more energy than I admit it. I do care to admit it. I spent a lot of energy picturing that Gungan Nile. Mask, how it works, the snoot, the eye stalks, the ears covered. I spent a lot of time thinking about that, and then I thought about Joseph. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah,
how do you get out? I mean, yes, you're right. You mentioned the Gungan who died celebrating there, so you're going to go off planet to celebrate. But who, what happened over there? Did they get punished and they wanted to leave? I don't know, but I did. All jokes aside, thought about it a lot.
Yeah. Yep, and in Last Shot, it has that great joke of like, not all Gungans have the same dialect, but I want that Nile Gungan to have
just
to have a really evil version of that dialect. You's gonna die.
Yeah, just a little touch. Yeah,
just a little touch. I think that would be fun. Those are the canon things that I pulled out. Anything else that grabbed you that you wanted to talk about?
None that I can recall. Just fun little details along the way, and R-Wings, something new. Another letter of the alphabet flying around. I love that.
Yeah, wow. So dense with the different canon things. The R-Wings really fun, and can't wait to see that in action.
Mm.
But with that, is there anything that you questioned or wrestled with? Anything that just kind of subjectively didn't work for you in this book?
Yeah, I slightly wrestled with the Drengir as presented in this one, which wasn't. By the way, wasn't shockingly different from anything we've dealt with before. I think Daniel Jose Older had a lot of fun with them, and I love the wrinkle that they can be kind of reasoned with. I don't know how to describe that. Like there's something going on there because so far
Yeah.
they've been pretty unstoppable, and even here they're blasted and they're being cut in two, and they're only growing back harder. There's something about I liked it. Some of the conversations about it, they didn't hit for me as much. Because I'll say this, I think the Drengir are actually a really silly concept. They're pretty wild. Feed me Seymour enemies in Star Wars, but the execution has been really well done for me so far, and this one continues that. So I don't want to sound like I don't like it, but there was a couple times some of the jokes, some of the beats, the meat thing. I think you might either be on board or not, and I'd like to think there's wiggle room on that, and it's not yes or no, but that stood out to me a little bit more in this book.
Yeah, no, I think I'm on the same page with you. I really like the Drengir, and a part of why I like them is because they are big, bold, weird space fantasy.
Yeah.
And the Drengir can tip towards the power of that idea, the absolute horror of a sentient plant, a sentient infestation of this ancient thing that comes to life, and it just overwhelms you and swarms you, and you can't really kill it, and all it wants to do is consume, and that can be really, really terrifying. But then on the other side of it, them just calling everything meat and all they want to do is eat is also legitimately funny. But
Yeah.
for me, it's definitely like a funny it's a Spider-Man funny of with great power comes great responsibility.
Right.
And there wasn't anything I disliked in the way that this was written. It was just now like the second or the third time that I've experienced kind of the just yelling meat
Mm-hmm.
from a humorous perspective. It is funny, but I think that it needs, as it goes forward, I want there to be some twists on that,
Yeah. How can we keep them fresh each time?
Yeah, exactly. Keep yelling meat fresh and keep meat fresh. I did really like that their motivation that the way that Rom saw, their part in the whole was that the Nihil promised they wouldn't kill anyone on Valo and they could eat all the fresh meat. And that was probably the most successful moment for me of both meaning and comedy, where like we were told the meat would be left for us.
Yeah.
And that's what gets them to turn on the Nihil. I thought that was successfully meaningful and successfully really funny.
Yeah.
I will say, Ken, have you read the not the IDW, but the High Republic comic yet?
I am about 3 issues into that with Spear.
Yeah, as it goes on, I think the Drengir there's more variety in how the Jedi are dealing with them than facing them. I think because there's some visuals of infestation,
Right.
the creepier part of the Drengir is really on display in that comic.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. See, again, heading to my shop. I got to get more of them comics, kids.
I'm just really trying to keep caught up. It's a struggle. There's so much. All right. So meat is great. We're looking for some meat variations as well. That's our our personal reaction to the Drengir. So, Ken, do you have hopes for the future of these characters? Specifically, it looks like Rom is joining the cast of the High Republic Adventures comic with Lula and Zine. Do you have hopes for their future adventures?
Number one, I'm going to catch up on their adventures so far. I'm going to read that comic. Yeah, what a wonderful team of folks on a special self-discovery mission and what they can learn. I think that'll be fun. And 3 kind of younger folks in this big kind of crazy time of the galaxy. I think that's just going to be fun. But I'd love to have them get involved with something kind of serious and I'd love at some point for them to meet Marky and Ro.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe in a middle grade reader too. Could you imagine like Marky and Ro turning the corner just to, like Vader in the hallway to us and New Hope, just like at 7, 8 years old going, what is that monster? I would love Marky and Ro to do that for younger readers.
Yeah. And he is in those comics. There's some creepiness going on there. So yeah. Right. So but Rom could definitely encounter him, and I think that would definitely be upsetting for Rom.
I gotta catch up to these comics. It's gotta catch up.
This is just sort of like the balance, right? Of these,
Hmm.
they're doing a really good job of having all these books and comics mostly stand on their own. You can pick them up and read them, but they are so interconnected too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think for me, already invested in Lula and Zine's adventures. Looking forward to those. I'm really fascinated with this idea of Rom going out into the galaxy. It's a beautiful way for this book to end, to set up those
Mhm.
adventures. But I think there's room for this possibility of a story where Rom's like, yeah, I'm seeing the rest of the galaxy. I'm connecting. I'm having friends. That's important. Also, sometimes I really do just want to be alone, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd love to see him develop as a character who knows that it is good to connect with others, and then also knows like it's fine to be both an extrovert and an introvert. Nobody is 100% one or the other, and I need some time alone in my room.
Yeah. 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 I'm gonna go fix something.
Yep, yep. And then I want him to see him become in the Force in combat, just an expert at dismantling blasters with a wave of his hand.
Oh, that'd be great.
Beautiful.
What's that? Is that like X plus R1 at the same time when your meters?
Yeah, and then you have to do like little J swoop on the controller. It's really hard to do.
Those ones always get me.
Another question I have about hopes for the future. So, at the end there's a great moment there. The Drenger are not happy because they were told the Valo people would be kept alive for them to eat. And the Drengers steal a Nile ship and just leave.
I love it.
That felt like the setup for the Drenger comic.
Really?
The Drenger novel. Do you want to follow those particular Drenger?
Yeah, here I am asking for a little different take on the Drenger as we move on. This might be it. I mean, I love that they pilot. I can't think of the example of some other pop culture references in my head, but I can't really attach to it. But just I want to see them land back at the Nile headquarters, the Nile conference room hall there. And just the ship comes down and hey, and like everyone's like, what? Mate, just comes rushing out like like a bunch of Sweetums from Muppets just coming out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can't remember which character is thinking it or saying it, but like I didn't know they could fly, and I think there is the great moment of Drenger comedy because it is a little different. I think I just kind of pictured it in my head, like almost in a real world way of like just like you're driving, and then you stop at a stoplight for us here in LA on Sunset, and you look over and like, is that Prius full of plants?
Yes.
There's like a comedy to it of like, okay, they know how to fly. Like, what are they gonna do? Are they gonna go to the store and buy stuff? Are they going to a bar? What's happening on the Drenger Joyride?
Are they saying meat? Meat. Yeah. Yep.
Exactly. So they're going wherever there's meat, I guess.
Yeah.
Good old meat enjoying Drenger.
By the
So,
way,
all right. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think the Drenger, and I'd love to hear the audiobook version. I haven't heard those yet, but they probably are intended to be like meat. But I just hear meat. That's all I hear every time.
Yeah, I mean, I think they really were played for some fun comedy in this book, and I think this book did lean a little bit more to the meat.
Yeah.
All right. So, anything else that we have not talked about that you wanted to touch on?
I can't think. I mean, this is a real high compliment. This is just a straightforward, the race is on book, and so many big things are dealt with in such a wonderful, direct manner that this book was a real fun read. Because I got behind on the reading. You and I will know we're reading these books, and sometimes I felt you fall behind schedule, and you're cramming, and let me grab some Post-it notes. And this one just zoomed by, and I really enjoyed that experience.
Yeah, this was it definitely had ideas to it. Definitely super valuable coming of age ideas, well expressed, but also just thrill ride. It was just a little adventure serial of a book, and I really appreciated that. I thought it was great. I have a question to wrap up that is hopefully fun, Ken.
Okay.
If you could use the Force to fix mechanical objects, what would you try to fix?
This chair, if y'all can hear, I'll just not do it now. I get these broadcast chairs, but I have to, I don't have a lot of allowance money, so I have to go kind of for the ones that I'm almost at the weight limit on. So they always, about every 4 months, the squeak returns, and I have to get a new set. So I'm gonna have to save up since I don't have the Force to repair it and get a better chair. But that would work for me. And I'm having a real big problem right now with my kitchen sink. The handle keeps coming loose, and I have to tighten down. But it's something on the inside that an actual plumber has to come fix, and so I can't fix it. So I would love to use the Force to go in like a almost like a doctor or not Doctor Strange, but Ant-Man kind of micro level into the microverse or whatever to fix that with the Force.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I hadn't been thinking about that, but yeah, no, we're having this problem with our shower head, where it's constructed in such a way where we can't just take it apart and like clean out filters, right?
The worst.
So the water will sometimes get kind of low, and this is like we have to call our super nice building sort of superintendent, and it takes 5 seconds for him. It's like, if we could just have access to that, we could clean it ourselves. And now I have this beautiful picture of wearing Jedi robes and like floating in the air with my legs crossed and just gesturing, and all of the little bit of junk that gets into water pipes just comes floating out, and it goes straight out the window.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful
It's
picture.
so beautiful. The Force is beautiful, Ken.
Yeah, especially for fixing gunked up pipes.
That is one of the powers of the Force, fixing the gunked up pipes. All right, that is our look at Race to Crashpoint Tower. And Ken, unless you have any other thoughts, you want to let people know where they can find us.
Absolutely. We are on Twitter at ForceCenter Pod. We're on Instagram and YouTube as well. Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. We're available on Anchor, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Amazon Music, and Spotify. We have merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. You can support us directly at patreon.com/ForceCenter. You can find me at Ken Napzok, or go over to the gpa.fun and check out what we're doing over there. You can go to my website, kennapzok.com, to get information on my upcoming stand-up show in Seattle on July 24th with Mark Ellis and Daniel Bridge. Gad, you, sir.
Yeah, you can find me Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Joseph Scrimshaw. You can check out all of my other comedy adventures on my website, josephscrimshaw.com. But for now, for myself, for Ken, for the Drenger flying around, joyriding in an aisle ship, this has been ForceCenter.